Hi guys, welcome back to Dream Analytica. Today we're going to talk about a dream symbol or archetype that is common or ubiquitous among a lot of people, and it is school. I also want to talk a little bit about how to remember your dreams when you have a dream in the morning and what are some of the experiences associated with that. The reason I want to talk about school today is because it has appeared in so many people's dreams over the past couple of years, and I have done my own thorough analysis on what the symbol of the school means because it seems to be a common dream motif that many people have and are curious about. So I thought I might as well make a video entirely dedicated to understanding what the symbol of the school means. It's pretty much an institution, and what that ultimately means is you could associate the school by linking it to the Great Mother in one area, in one interpretation. In some universities in the US, they usually call it the Alma Mater, which in other words is translated to the Nourishing Mother. So the school, you could say, is a nourishing mother archetype, and you can sort of find that association because it takes care of you, tells you what to do. It's sort of like being in the womb of the mother. So that's one interpretation for the school, having a dream about a school. It can represent a psychological state which the individual has not yet broken away from this alma mater, or the nourishing mother. In one sense, in the positive sense, it could represent the sense of security, psychological sense of security. But in most cases, I would say it represents something that is either undeveloped or undergoing development, just as you were in school. Now, you can sort of take the school as a metaphor as well. Just like in school, we go through levels or grades or years. You could take the same interpretation or metaphor for the psychological approach as going through stages of psychological development. That seems to be a very common explanation for having school dreams. It shows you, because you have some people who still dream about school despite being out of school 20 years later, such as myself. And what that told me before, when I had interpreted my previous dreams about school, was that I was still psychologically developing, just as I was developing in school. Like you're going through 11th and 12th grade, you're about to graduate, but you're just not there yet. So that shows you the psychological stage of development that you're in. That is one of the common interpretations for some people, not all, because dreams are very nuanced, as I mentioned many times. So you could say that depending on what grade you are in, depending on what you are feeling in the dream, what is your range of freedom in the dream, like are you allowed to leave the campus, are you allowed to go home? These are all little nuances that you want to take out if you're going to analyze your dream and you have a dream about school, and try to relate it to a psychological state. So the school, when you dream about the school, it's a psychological state. There's a reason why you are dreaming about school. It could be that you are imposing some artificial rules onto yourself, just like in school, or that you're about to graduate, but you're just not there yet. You're almost there. Like you may feel in conscious reality that you're just about, you feel sort of trapped. Maybe there's like a limit of freedom in your life right now, and the dream could be showing you that, look, you just have to hang on a little longer, and then you'll graduate into the real world, into freedom. That could be another explanation. It could also represent a psychological state in which you are, like I said, imposing these artificial rules that limit your freedom. In a way, you could say that you are still dependent psychologically on these, just like in school, schedules. You have a determined lunchtime. It could be very well related to your work situation. Like if you're working a 9 to 5 and the dream is indicating to you, like, look, your freedom is limited because of this structure that is imposed upon you, and there's no spontaneity involved here. Your life is just so structured in a way, just like in school. Kind of like having a mother, like she'll wake you up, she'll tell you when to eat, do all these things. In the negative sense, like the devouring mother, there's two. So the nourishing mother or the devouring mother, the positive mother complex or the negative mother complex. That's important in Jungian psychology, to always try to, not always, but to try to see things in terms of opposites. And that's what psychology is all about too. It's about balancing the opposites and holding the opposites in. I'm digressing there, but that's a very important concept in understanding psychology. So the reason, once more, that I wanted to talk about the school is because I actually had a couple of dreams in the past week about school, and I was really struggling to analyze them because the previous interpretations that I just provided you did not fit for me. And so I had to really think about it. And actually, the more I thought about it, the less I realized. I mentioned this in many other videos, but doing your own dream analysis is extremely difficult because you cannot see your own backside. So this morning, after I had woken up and had my coffee, it just hit me like a lightning bolt, this interpretation. And my dream is rather nuanced, very specific to my own situation currently. You know, starting my own business and working with people, also in regards to creating videos and trying to share this psychological knowledge with people. That's sort of the context of my situation. It's difficult. It's not easy. Starting your own business is one of the scariest things that you can do. It really feels like you're on the verge of death. Like every day, like one day you'll be doing great, and then next you're just like struggling, like absolutely struggling. There's a lot of sleepless nights. You just don't know when the next thing is gonna happen, and it's so uncertain. Like you could just, there's so much in you that is just like you could just call it, end it, close it down today. Naturally, as I have mentioned many times before, dreams offer compensation, which means that if you are struggling with a very severe problem consciously, your dreams will often offer you a counter solution to compensate for your conscious attitude as a rebalancing act. This is so powerful because if there is seriously a real problem that you're struggling with, and then you sleep that night, you have a dream, it's most likely that dream is going to be a resolution for your conscious problem. This is not to say that it will offer you a direct pathway, although sometimes it can, but it will offer you some sort of consolation, some resolution, some indicator of where you need to progress to get unstuck. The scariest part is when you don't dream. And this is different from saying that you don't remember your dreams. Not remembering your dreams and not dreaming are two different things. It's most likely you do dream, you just don't remember them. However, if you don't dream, or if you have a dream and the dream offers no resolution, or not even about the problem that you're struggling with, that's scary. But it's most often the case that if you are struggling quite severely with a problem, the dreams offer a compensation. So I was struggling a lot, like with this whole business thing. Naturally, I had dreams, and at first glance, because you're standing so close to the dream, it feels like there's no, like it's not related, and it's very frustrating because you're like, okay, I'm really struggling right now, but the dream is not offering any solution. But then I started noticing a pattern over the weeks because I kept having dreams about being in school, in a school setting, whether in college, whether in high school, or in a classroom. The most recent one, I was in a tiny little classroom and my old instructor was there, who I respected a lot. And there were two main groups, two groups. I was with my friend and there was another group. The other group, we both had projects assigned to us and a syllabus, and I didn't understand the syllabus. I just didn't understand it in the dream. And the other team, they were so far ahead. They were developing these really intricate computer programs, and I saw it on the computer. It was like this thing just, I went to industrial design school, so we did a lot of CAD modeling and 3D modeling, and whatever they were making on the screen was like this super futuristic thing, and I just felt like so behind. And my friend in the dream, my partner in the project that we're working on, we hadn't even started, by the way, in the dream. He was like, we should just call it quits. But then something in me was just like, This is my ego speaking. It was just like, no, I want to try and understand the syllabus. I don't care if we're behind. I don't care if we haven't started anything yet. I want to do it, not because of impressing my instructor or trying to compete with the other team. I wanted to do it because I wanted to understand how this class works, how this syllabus works. And then at the very end, we developed some very primitive project. I think it was like a cat button where the cat would sit on the button and something would activate. I don't remember exactly, but that was the gist of it. And that was my dream of being in that school setting in the project. And it finally hit me this dream was several days ago, but today the interpretation finally hit me. And again, the interpretation is subjective. It is not objective, meaning there can be a million interpretations, but the only thing that matters is whether or not the interpretation revitalizes you. It gives you a surge of energy, whether it triggers you or whether you feel something. If you just feel something, then you know the interpretation is right, because you could interpret a dream in a million different ways, because there's billions of people on earth and each have their own subjective experience of reality, and therefore each interpretation, despite having the exact same dream, can have a completely different interpretation. So what this dream meant to me was that in this period of, which is also important, like the 2-year mark of starting a business is very indicative. It's not ubiquitous. It's not going to be it's not going to be for everyone, but 2 years is often the struggle point. Same as having a toddler that's 2 years old. That's like the hardest time to have a kid, when they're 2 years old. It's like the make it or break it. Like you're either going to die, you're going to continue on. So what this dream effectively told me was what I was struggling with psychologically. I was viewing the business in sort of this competitive fashion, in addition to trying to impress others, as represented by the symbol of the teacher and my competition in the dream. Beautiful metaphor, by the way. And now you understand how the interpretation works for your own dreams, because then you can see that these associations are uniquely my own, and no artificial intelligence is going to be able to give you that. You're going to type in your dream in ChatGPT, and it's going to give you some random interpretation that can be applied to everybody. That's not how it works. The interpretation is uniquely yours, and the association are uniquely yours, that have been given to you from all your experiences in the past. So that was my association with my instructor, who in college, in real life, we were friends. He's a very good guy, and I did actually care about impressing him, and he often gave me a really good grade, because not only were we good friends, but I was diligent, and I did care more about the subject than about getting a good grade. I loved computers and I loved 3D modeling, and despite not being the best, I always did my best, and I got straight A's in that class. So that's what he means to me, in addition to my competition, and then my shadow figure in the dream, which is the same gender as the dreamer in most cases. So my shadow was this intelligent little because the last time I saw him was in high school. Little because he's like this nerdy kid saying that we should just call it quits, represents my intellectual aspect. It's overthinking things, seeing it from a very rational perspective. Rationally, it would be appropriate to quit. So that's my shadow. It's like saying, as a compensation for my conscious attitude, which never likes to give up. I don't like to give up, and more often than not, I will not give up. So he represents my opposing qualities that say we should just call it quits. Like the quitter, we all have a quitter in us, and it just so happens this really smart kid is the quitter in me. He's the one that raises the white flag when things get tough. I refused that. The competition represents the creative aspect. They were doing it. Now that I think about it, they were doing it because they seemed to enjoy it, like creating music. It wasn't like they were doing it to compete with us. They were just so far ahead, they didn't even care about us, to be honest. And that's important, because that told me something about my own psychology. I was not doing it because I enjoyed it. I was doing it because I was trying to compete or impress others. And that's all wrong. So this setting of the school represented to me that, look, stick with it. whatever it is that you're doing in conscious reality, which is the business, stick with it and remember why you're doing it. It's not to impress others, nor is it about competing with others. The long-term goal is that you do what you're doing because you enjoy it and because you like being creative, you like problem solving. Ever since I was a kid, I loved taking the remote apart, putting it back together as a metaphor. I loved computers. I loved understanding things, including psychology, the human mind. So it was like, again, the school motif is just that. Like, there's a period in college that I remember feeling, and I'm sure some of you have felt this way about college. Like, in the 2-year mark, you're like in the middle, in the midpoint, because it's a 4-year college, right? So you're like in the middle. And I remember in the 2-year mark in college, there was a really difficult point where I wanted to just quit. And I remember having, I wouldn't call him my friend anymore, but I remember having a friend, and I told him that I wanted to quit. And he's like, yeah, just quit. I realized now that he was competing with me, probably threatened. Equally, I was probably competing with him unconsciously. But yeah, he was just like, just quit. And because he said that, I almost quit college because I was like, oh my God, there's 2 more years to go. But at the same time, you're like, oh, I finished 2 years. I should just keep going, you know, just finish it. I remember one of my instructors too was just like, no, just keep going. I know this is the hard part. Just keep going. So I kept going. But it's that conflict, that psychological state. That's my association to being in school. So in the dream, it just felt like I'm almost there, but you know, it's also so far away. And I know a lot of people can relate to that feeling. So when you have a dream, that also shows you that psychological state that you're in, whether or not you should stick with it or whether or not you should, you know, quit. More often than not, I would say it's like suggesting you that you're almost there, because in a lot of dreams, we're like close to graduation. Like you're repeating 12th grade again. Like you're just about graduated, but you're still like 1 year away. And that seems to be a common motif among people. They're like close to graduation, and they're like, why am I repeating the same grade again? So that's showing you that, look, you're almost there. You just are repeating the same cycles, psychological cycles that you've done in the past. And that's why you're back in 12th grade, because you're almost there. You just have to realize something in order to graduate. But you keep repeating the same mistakes, and this dream is trying to indicate to you, look, stop thinking of it this way. Think of it this way. You're almost there. And then once you're there, you would have built your project in the dream and graduated. And that's what the school motif meant to me. Very powerful stuff. I think if you have a dream about school, I would definitely like to hear it so that we can interpret it together and then see all these different beautiful interpretations about the school motif and what it means to you. But those are some of the interpretations about what the school motif means. I hope you found that helpful. I definitely feel like a surge of energy. I hope you can feel it through the camera, because when I was having my coffee this morning, it also could have been the caffeine, but I just felt this surge of energy when that thought crossed my head. Okay, now I did mention in the beginning of the video that I wanted to help you try to remember your dreams in the morning, like as you wake up. Because a lot of us, I did mention it before, like we have dreams, we just don't remember them or we're not paying attention. So that's the first indication. Just remember you do dream. What Jung said, or what Marie-Louise von Franz said from her experience, this is not my own experience, but hers. She just mentioned that in her practice, she only found out there are only around like 2 kinds of people that don't dream. Those that are fatally depressed, that don't dream, but once they start dreaming, they start feeling less depressed, or even better, and the fatally old, meaning old people that are pretty much close to death. Those are the 2 people that don't dream. For the fatally old, they usually start dreaming again when they're about to pass away. So those are the only 2 people that don't dream. And that's important. So that means that unless you are fatally depressed or fatally old, you do dream. It's just you're not remembering them or paying attention. So what you want to do to remember them is you need to tell yourself, this takes a bit of discipline here, but you need to tell yourself, you're not going to remember it in the morning. You're not going to remember it when you wake up. Because what happens is the dream images is like smoke. If you don't capture that smoke right then and there, it's going to diffuse, and it's just going to be too late and too far away for you to capture. And it's so essential for you to write your dreams down because you just don't know or realize how important that message could be, especially in a time where you're going through a lot. It's going to really give you something, even if a little, like a little bit of bread, a bread of life is the symbol in dreams. But you don't realize just how important the message could be if you don't write your dreams down. Like you need to realize every dream has a message. Depending on how important that message is, depends on the dream. But every dream has a message. There's something that needs to be rebalanced. There's a guiding light at the end of the tunnel. Some dreams offer that. It's so powerful. So you need to remember, the first thing is you're not going to remember your dream in the morning. No matter how many times you tell yourself, just make it a habit that you're not going to remember your dream in the morning. For some people, yeah, we all do have that one very powerful dream that we do remember without having to write it down. But again, it had to get to that extent of power, that immense emotional drama, which is the dream, for you to remember it. So it probably had to escalate to the point where it emotionally triggered you to the point where you would remember it. But for the most part, just say to yourself, I'm not going to remember this dream. I have to write it down in the morning, because we're lazy. Humans are always lazy. We always gravitate towards laziness. Unfortunately, laziness is not going to get you the message. You need to have a little bit of discipline if you want to remember your dreams, if you want these pieces of gold, which are dreams, and get the messages to help you in life. You need to remember them. You need a bit of discipline. And don't worry, for those of you who are light sleepers, I can guarantee you, more often than not, people who write down their dreams are able to fall back asleep again. It's like a unloading of the mind, offloading of the mind. So you're pouring all of these images onto paper, so it sort of decompresses the mind so that you have more space, and then you're able to fall asleep again. Depressurizes. So you will fall asleep again. Don't worry about that. If you think like, oh, if I wake up now, I'm not going to fall asleep. Nope, don't worry about it. You will, for the most part, fall asleep again. But just remind yourself to write your dreams down in the morning, because it's like catching smoke. And if you don't write your dreams down, just think of it like losing a nugget of gold. They are really nuggets of gold. Your dreams are really nuggets of gold. So if you don't write it down, you're losing that piece of gold. Every dream, no matter how big or how small, you're losing pieces of gold every single night. It's not fun. Sometimes the dream, we can also feel like you don't want to remember it. I'm accused of this too. Like there are times where I'm like, okay, maybe I don't want to really write that down because it was not such a good dream. Yeah, I've made that mistake. It's not good. The dream, despite it feeling bad, often has a very profound message behind it. Something very profound, something that will tell you a lot, actually, despite its negative feeling in the dream. So don't worry about that. So just to recap, you do have dreams unless you're fatally depressed or old. Dreams are like smoke. If you don't catch it right away, you're not going to catch it at all. The only time you will remember your dreams is if they are big ones, like emotionally impactful dreams, very dramatic dreams. And yeah, just write them down. Write them down. You can record your voice, or you could write it in a journal. I developed an app where you can write it in my app. I know this is a really cool plug, subtle plug there from app, but no, really, you don't need to use the app. You could download, or you could use your notes app on your phone and just write your dream down there. Quite a few extroverts record their dreams using their voice. I don't like doing that as an introvert. I'm not sure if that's being an introvert or extrovert, but for me it's just too much energy. I prefer just typing it on my phone, and I use my app actually. It's cool because on the app it numbers it, so like if you just record all your dreams, there's like over 1,000 recordings of dreams now on my app, and it shows you, and then you title each dream, and then when you scroll through the list of dreams, you start noticing a pattern if you title your dreams, which is really important. I think you should title your dreams because each dream is like a poem or a short story. So if you title your dream like ex-girlfriend, Harry Potter, castle in the sky, something like that, you start noticing a pattern. And then what you could do if you're an analytically minded person is you could associate that pattern with what you were going through in that time. So let's say you dream about school and it always coincided with when your business was doing terribly. This is so crazy. Or you dream about your partner or ex-partner and it always associated when you guys were having an argument and it was trying to help you, give you some messages about what you needed to do in the relationship or what you were projecting in the relationship. But you always seem to be dreaming about certain things during certain conscious periods, like whatever you were doing consciously. That's crazy. I mean, you can do that with the Notes app too. You could do it with any app, actually, with writing app. But in my app specifically, on Dream Analytica, it's cool because it also numbers your app, so you could see the amount of dreams that you have, and it also records the date, timestamp, so you remember exactly what you were doing that day. You can download it if you would like. But yeah, so just try to record your dreams and see if you could find any patterns there. Try to break a record and see how many dreams you can record in a week, in a month, in a year. 365 dreams, one dream a day for the entire year. That's crazy. Then you really have a lot of data that you can play around with. 365 points of data if you're analytically minded like myself. All right, so that's all I have. I hope you took something out of this. Once again, if you have a dream about school, please share it in the comments or on my website. You could reach out to me if you want to work with me and help you understand your dreams better. I would love to do that. But yeah, share your dreams in the comment and let's take a look and see what the school motif might mean for you. And I think the more data points we have about dreams, the better we will be at understanding dreams as a collective, as a team of Jungian analysts here. So, all right, that's all I have. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.